Hey guys, and welcome to the video. So in this video we're going to be going over how to set up a Steam lobby system using the GodotSteam module by Gramps for our Godot engine. So before we can move on to the actual tutorial, you need to make sure that you have your Godot engine fully recompiled and set up to use the GodotSteam module, as well as having your export templates generators as well. This is outside of the scope of this tutorial, but any information you need on that can be found over at the GodotSteam website. A link will be in the description. So the first thing we're going to need to do for our project is make sure the Steam is initializing correctly. We'll do this by creating a global script, which will auto-load with the project. And this will check to see if Steam has initialized correctly and also contain a few parameters for ourselves. So we'll create a new script and call it globals, and then we can open it and empty it. We don't want any of this extra fluff. So first we're going to need to paste in a few variables that we'll use throughout the whole project. We'll start with some Steam variables. These will be owned online, Steam ID, Steam name. We're just setting these to some base default values, but these will be edited and used throughout the project. We also have some key lobby information here that we will need to keep track of and use throughout the project as well. Next, we're going to put in our ready function. This is where we'll actually initialize Steam and make sure that everything's working correctly as we want. First, we're going to run this in Steam init function and capture it in the init variable. The init variable we're then going to use to check the status to make sure that it's actually running correctly. Make sure a Steam client is running. If a user tries to load the game without a Steam account connected, then we will just shut down the game and prevent them from going any further. Otherwise, there's a little bit of information we're going to want to capture. So the first thing is online, make sure the Steam user is actually logged on. We've got the Steam ID, which is the user's Steam ID. We want to capture that variable, same with their name. And we also want to make sure that the user owns the game. So we'll check the is subscribed function. We can then use this to check if they don't own our game. Then we want to close down the game and stop them from moving on. After that, we are just going to put in the process function and make sure that the Steam is running the callbacks. Okay, so now that we have our global set up, we are going to want to make sure we set it as an auto load for our project. So we'll go over to project settings, to our auto loads, select our globals and add it. And we want to make sure that it is added as a singleton. This will mean that this script will load with the project and the variables we've put in here are accessible across the whole project. Okay, so now that we have our Steamworks initialized in our project, we can make a start on our lobby UI. This can be something really simple for now, as we will probably update this and iterate throughout multiple UI designs, especially if you're trying to make a game. Then as you develop a theme for your game, you're probably going to go back and reiterate through all your UI anyways. So making something simple for the sake of testing purposes is what we'll do here. So we'll initially start by creating a 2D scene from a 2D node. I'm going to speed up through the process of creating this UI first, and we'll get back to it and I'll describe what I've done afterwards. Okay, so then now that I've sped through that, I can describe exactly what it is that I've done. So initially I created a set of buttons. These are going to be used for creating the lobby, joining lobbies, leaving lobbies. I've got a start game button here. We're not going to use that for the tutorial. You'll handle that in your own way in your own project. But I thought it'd be good to showcase what you could do here. After that, I've set up two panels. One of them is where we're going to hold the player list and display the names of the players who are in the current lobby. The other one is going to be the sort of lobby chat box. This is where we're going to be able to talk. I've got a text field here with a lobby name where you can give a name to your lobby when you create one. This will be updated into our lobby name. And we've got obviously the message box here, where we can send our messages. I've put a label at the top right, just Steam name at the moment. This is where I'm going to be able to display the Steam name of the current user so they can see their name at the top right at all times. Lastly, we created this pop-up panel. This is what we'll use when the user clicks join lobby, and it'll display a list of lobbies when it searches. This remains hidden by default, and we'll call that in code when we need to. Okay, so now that we have our UI set up, it's time to start writing our script. We do this by initially creating a new script onto our 2D node, Steam lobby. That'll be fine, and we want to clear out the junk as usual. The first thing we will add is going to be some connections to our UI elements. These local variables we'll use throughout the project so that we're not grabbing direct access every time we want to use them. These will be things like any labels and text fields and text boxes that we're going to want to populate and clear and iterate through as we go along. The next thing I'm going to add at the top here is two enum containers. We'll get into more details later about why we're going to use these, but basically there are two places where Steam needs values to decide how it's going to work. For example, when we're creating a lobby, we want to know if we're going to be private, for friends, public. These would normally be you pass in a 0, a 1, a 2, or a 3. At a glance, that can be hard to understand. So by using the enums, we can actually have it pass in private, which will represent a 0. And then when we're actually looking through our project at later days, if you're debugging or if your project gets much bigger, then it's much easier to see at a glance exactly what Steam is actually doing. So that's the way that I like to get around that. Next, we will create our ready function. The first thing I do in the ready function is I set the Steam name that we captured in the globals when the client first connected, and I set that label that we had at the top right to be equal to it, so the user can see their name in the top right of their screen. Then we want to add our connections for Steam. These will be the varying functions that we'll use throughout this project as Steam callbacks. Last, I have this check command line. We'll grab this now. So I personally like to keep this towards the bottom. This is entirely personal preference. You can have it wherever you want. This doesn't matter. But I like to keep it out of the way as it's just this singular section. So what the check command line is actually doing is it will allow us to be able to join friends or accept invites without the game being initially loaded. This is what will load the game with the arguments that we require and then join the lobby. Obviously, you can see that join lobby is complaining here. We haven't created it yet, and we'll get to that later. So for the time being, we're just going to comment that out. The last thing that we're going to want to do is quickly create each of our button press events. So we'll go through and create these quickly now. We're not going to need the start. And we also want the close one in the pop-up panel, so make sure you don't forget that one. I think that should be it. And I like to create sort of dividers personally myself. I'm going to take this and move it to the bottom. Keep the buttons up above it. We'll keep them all as doing nothing for now, because as we go through, we'll slowly add the functionality for the buttons. But it's good to have the buttons there ready to be used. Okay, so now let's make a start on actually creating some lobbies. I'm first going to grab one of the separators I personally like to use. These are the functions that we will create that we'll then call the callbacks later. So the first thing that we're going to add is this create lobby function. This basically just double checks to make sure that the user is currently not in a lobby. If they are, then we're going to call the create lobby callback from function through Steam and pass in two parameters. This is the first place where we're going to use one of those enums we were talking about. This is where the lobby status is where we'll define whether we're going to be private, public, or friends. By passing in the lobby status dot public, this will pass in the 2, which is what we want for create lobby. Only having that as a 2, that you scroll past that, there's a lot harder to know exactly what that is doing. The second variable that we're passing in is just the max lobby count. This can go up to 250, I believe, with Steam. This is highly dependent on your game. You'll probably have some kind of variable saved somewhere, maybe even in your globals, which is what contains your max player count for your game. We're just going to set this for 4 for now, just for allowing the function to continue. Okay, so this is one of the first place we'll be using one of the built-in Steam callbacks. So the first Steam callback that we're actually going to use is this onLobbyCreated. This callback is called if this Steam function call is run successfully and a lobby is created. We have this connect variable. We are just checking to make sure that the status is 1. Yes, we are connected, and it also provides us with a lobby ID. One of the first things that we are going to want to do is set our globals lobby ID to be equal to the lobby ID. It's good to capture this variable as there are many other situations and places throughout the script that we may wish to use this lobby ID other than just this script. So we want to keep a copy of it. Here we have this display message function. We'll create that in a moment, but this is basically just sort of replacing where you'd normally do a print statement. In this case, it's actually going to be used to print messages into the chat box for the sake of some user feedback so that they know what's going on. You'll see us use this many times throughout the project. In this case, it's just going to say that we have created the lobby, and what it's doing is taking that text field, which we can put in a name for, and it's just adding that to it. Next, we want to set up some lobby data. So we want to actually provide our lobby with it. It needs to know its lobby ID. We want to make sure that we also provide it a name field, in which, same thing as with displaying the message, we are just going to set it to what we've typed in the field. Then this bit here is I'm just sort of capturing that name into a local variable. This is just a cleaner, easier way of doing this. I'm getting the the lobby's data. I'm getting the name, and I'm setting the name in our, if we go over here, this name here, I'm setting that label to be the name that we've set it to. This means that when you create a lobby and you have that chat box, it will accurately display the name of the lobby that you set up. Okay, so to get it out of the way, as this is a function that we're going to use a lot throughout the project, we'll just quickly create this display message. All this basically does is it takes in the message, whatever it is that we're sending to the function, and it then adds the text to a new line to that lobby output window that we have inside of our chat. But yeah, we're just adding the text so that as we go through, we have this thing here, and it will populate with messages, including lobby messages, not just ones sent. So this is good. Okay, so the last thing we are going to need to do is to just set up our create lobby press function. So in this, when we actually click on our button, all we want to do is call our create lobby function. This button will now call this function. This function will set up the Steam lobby, which in turn will do the Steam callback for this function. And that's how we create a lobby. So let's give it a quick test. So I don't have Steam running currently, so if we try to run it, I need to select our scene. You'll see the game tries to load and it immediately crashes. You can see we've got the printout here, failed to initialize Steam, Steam not running, shutting down. Okay, so now that I actually have Steam running, as you can see down here, now if I load the game, you can see it doesn't close out, and we've got my Steam name showing up right there. We've had the Steam overlay pop up. That's correct. We've got exactly what we want. Everything seems to be working there. Let's just create a test and click create, and we have an issue. Okay, what's gone wrong here? The create, I have not named this correctly. This text field is supposed to be called, I knew I did it somewhere. I knew there was a problem somewhere. We want this to be not be name. Okay, so that should have fixed that error. Always make sure that your connections are correctly named. This is unlikely to be a problem if you're typing it out, but obviously because I copied it in, I've accidentally made that mistake, but now we'll try again. We load up everything as expected, Steam overlay. We'll create a test lobby, and if we create, there you go, you can see we've had our update saying created lobby test. You can see that our actual lobby name has been updated to test, so everything is now working correctly now that I've solved that little mistake. Sorry about that, and well, now we can move on to the next part. Okay, so now that we've got the ability to create lobbies, we're going to want to be able to join lobbies as well. In this section, we will not be covering the lobby searching. That'll be covered in a later section. For now, we're just going to get the functionality to actually allow someone to join a lobby, and that way you'll be able to invite and join through the Steam overlay. So the first thing that we're going to need to get for us to use is going to be our join lobby function. So we'll just bring that in. So this join lobby function, we are using this, it will it gets the lobby ID that's of the server that we're trying to join. The first line, we're just making sure that if the pop-up panel that we have for searching is open, then we hide it. If we're joining that way, then we want to hide it. If we're joining through friends, then it's already hidden, so nothing's really going to happen. Then we're going to capture the name of the lobby with the getLobbyData method, just like we've done before. And we're going to display that in our chat box, stating that we're joining the lobby, passing in the name as some user feedback to let them know that they're joining the lobby and what lobby they're joining. Next, we are going to make sure that our lobby members array is cleared. This will most likely be clear already anyways, but by also making sure we do it here, it just helps to make sure that we definitely don't end up with any kind of anomalies and mistakes where the members field is populated with old data and then some of our updating things will show incorrect information. So just always want to make sure that we clear it. Lastly, we are simply calling the Steam join lobby and passing in the ID. This will actually create the join lobby request and Steam will handle the rest for us. And if successful, then we will move on to receive our lobby join callback, which we will add here. So if successful and we join a lobby, then we get this on lobby joined. This takes in a lobby ID. There are a couple of other parameters like permissions and whether it's locked, and we can get a response. These are something that we want to have because of our argument down here, but we are not really going to use. If you could probably use these in the future, feel free to check the search section with GodotSteam. You actually have, if I type in Steam, you can see we actually have a Steam section with pretty much everything we would want to know about Steam here. So if there's something here you want to double check, feel free to look that up. What you'll want to do, you won't want to search this, but you'll want to search what it connects to. So if we add lobby joined and search, you can see we have it here, and this gives us a little bit of insight as to what those are. So with that sorted now, what we're going to do is we want to make sure that we set our lobby ID to be the ID of the lobby we have joined. Again, this is something we can use throughout our scripts, so it's always good to have a copy of the ID of the lobby that you are currently in for just numerous reasons anytime you want to use it. Then, in usual fashion, we take the name with the get lobby data so that we can use that. In this case, we're updating the chat box lobby name here, just like when we create one, so that when you join a lobby, it displays the name. And then we have this get lobby members function that we haven't created yet, and we'll get to that in a moment. But before we do that, there is another callback that we're going to want to add, and this is when someone, like you've got your lobby join requested. So this is when you are attempting to join someone through the overlay or through an invite on Steam, and this just takes in the lobby ID and the ID of the friend of that you're trying to join. You set their name so that you can display a message saying that you're joining your friend's lobby, and then we just call join lobby like any other method that we would use to join, and everything will continue as normal there, and we'll join the lobby and we'll call this callback. And so from here we can move on to getting the lobby members, as we now should be able to join lobbies perfectly fine. And so we'll move on to this next section where we'll cover how to get the lobby members. Okay, so let's now move on to actually handling the lobby members. So as we know from the last section, once joining, we have this get lobby members function that we are yet to create. So that's the first thing that we're going to go ahead and create now. So if we go up here and after join, we add it in. So we've got this get lobby members. To start with, we're going to, like we pretty much always do, make sure that the lobby members array is clear. Again, there's a lot of repeating this, but is maybe not necessarily required, but it just, as a fail-safe, it makes sure that we have a very limited chance of running into any kind of issues. So there's no harm in making sure that your list is clear before you start anything. So after that, we move on and we get the member count of the current lobby. So we're getting how many people are in this lobby right now. We can do this with a Steam provided function, which is just get num lobby members, and we pass in the lobby ID that we are in right now. This is one of those situations where it's good that we've captured our own lobby ID so that we don't have to do any kind of function calling and things like that to try and get it. We have it captured already. After that, we can update the player count of the players section here. We want to update this title display how many are in there. Obviously, by default, we have it set to 0. So by this, we're just taking the player count, which we have defined up here. We're just setting the text, and we're basically typing in the same format that we had before, only between the brackets, we are now adding this member count as a string so that we can get the actual number of how many people are currently in the lobby. Then moving on, what we can do, especially now that we have the number of people in the lobby, this is very important for us to know, so that we can now loop through each individual member of the lobby using a for in range function, starting at the 0th, the first person, and just going for as long as how many people we have. The first two things we want to do is take the Steam ID and Steam name of these members. There are many other things that you could possibly do in here depending on what kind of information you want. There's many Steam parameters. Again, check the search thing if you're unsure on something, but there's a lot of information you could grab here if you wanted to. For our case, the most important one that we're going to want is the Steam name, because that is what we're going to display, but it's always handy to have their ID as well, because there are some things in which we want to be able to pass in the ID, for example, getting the name. Once we have both of these bits of information, we are calling a function, again, that we have not yet created, which is add player list, and we're passing in the ID and the name. So let's go ahead and quickly create that function now. So this should stop complaining now. There you go. So now we have this add player list function. This is taking in the Steam ID and the Steam name. And what we're doing is we're now finally populating our lobby members array. We're doing this by appending each member, because we call this individually on every single person. So every time we reach a new person, we are appending to the list this member's ID and their name, and providing it with a grabbable value for us. We are then making sure that the actual player list on the menu, so this is where our player list should be. We're making sure that that is clear. We don't want to have any people left over from previous servers. We want to make sure we're only displaying the people in this current server. And then again, in another loop, we are going through the array that we've created, and we are populating the list with the Steam name of a new person who's in the lobby, and we're creating a new line afterwards so that the next person, when they get created, simply move on to the next line. And then we have our players count up in here, and we'll display each individual member right down by there. Okay, so now that we have people joining and we can populate the field, one key thing that we need to do is the callbacks for the on-lobby update and the on-lobby chat update. So if we bring these in now, they're callbacks, so we will be putting them down by here in our callback section. There's not really too much we need to know about this. It's not really doing anything for us. We've just got a simple print statement, but it will complain at us if we don't have this. So there's just some parameters like whether the update was successful, and lobby ID, member ID, and a key. We're just going to capture all that information just to make sure that we don't have any complaints down in our debugger that we're not calling a function that's attempting to be called or something. But after that, the one that we actually want to make sure that we have correctly is this on-lobby chat update. Now, this callback is called anytime there is an alteration or an update to the lobby. So someone joining, someone leaving, someone being kicked, anything like that. Anytime something like that happens, this callback will fire. It takes in the lobby ID, the ID of the person who is the changed ID, sorry, and the ID of the person who is making the change, and the actual state, like what change has actually happened. So the first thing we want to do is to create changer, which is just get the person who made the change. So who is doing something here? Who are we talking about? Then we've just got these simple if, else if, and else statements. You could probably use some kind of switch case statement or something like that, but this is a nice, clean way, easy to show on a tutorial. So we're going to go ahead and do it this way. What we're basically going to do here is we're taking the chat state and comparing it to a value to find out exactly what state it is. So if you wish to know what the states are, if you search for chat state, you'll see in the help section we have this chat member state change entered, and this contains the values and tells us what each of them are for. So as we can see, someone entered 1, someone's left to disconnected is 4, we got kicked 8, banned 16. So that's where you can find the actual value changes if you want. Some of these you may wish to have, some of them you may not. I've decided to just show them all just so that you know how to use them. But you're definitely going to want to have this chat state 1, which is when someone joins. And what this will basically do is place a message in the chat box saying that someone, the name of the person who has joined the lobby. Same with 2, only this time it's 4 has left the lobby, so you can state that your friend has left the lobby in the chat box. The other 2 are kicked and banned. We don't have any kind of functionality for those in this tutorial, but they may be something that you have built into your game. So if you do kick or ban someone, then this is where these would be called, and you'd get the message to say that they've been kicked or they've been banned, different to the fact that they've just left. And if anything else happens that we're not sure on, we're just, for the sake of it, going to say this person did something. We don't know exactly what they did, but they've somehow caused this chat update to call. So we're just going to say that, this has happened. And lastly, we're just going to call this get lobby members function again, which just makes sure that if someone joins or someone leaves or anything like that, then we update the lobby, which will get how many people are now in there if someone's left or someone's joined, and go through as normal like in any other situation, and just make sure that we update our player list and things like that so that everything is as we expect it to be. Okay, so now that we have the lobby server list all updating, it's time to move on to getting the lobby list. So we're going to implement the joining lobby, the searching function now. First things first, before we move on, we're going to uncomment these 2 lines down in the check argument. Now that we have the ability to join lobbies and update and everything, we want to be able to join down in here as well. So the first thing we're going to need to do for joining is connect this join lobbies button to make sure that it opens up the pop-up panel. So that is the first thing that we're going to do in there, but there's a couple of other things that will go in there as well. So we'll quickly add that, but the close, while we're at it, we might as well make sure that the lobby pop-up can also be closed. Hide. It doesn't show up in just make sure they are the same. Yep. Okay, so now we can open it up and close it with our close panel. Just make sure that is set correctly. Okay, so there you go. Yep, that's where we've got a separate name, so we need to make sure that this is set to that same name. That's why we're getting these errors down here. So if I save that, go back to the script down here. If I try that again and go lobby pop up, I should now have there you go, hide function. So yeah, that's now linked correctly. So again, similar case to before, we just got to make sure that it's definitely named exactly as we're doing. So back to the actual join pressed function. Once we've actually popped up the pop-up window, the first thing we want to do is set some distance filters. This is a function that is built right into Steam. We just call add request lobby list distance filter, and this is the second place where we're going to use the enum containers from earlier, or at least we're going to use the second one. In a similar situation to before, this would normally take in just a value like 0, 1, or 2. In this case, we're going to use our search distance enum from before, where our options of 0 close, 1 default, 2 far, and 3 worldwide. We want to search worldwide, so we would normally pass in a 3, but for the sake of easily being able to read what is actually going on, we're using the enum to just say that we're searching worldwide, and that will act as A3. Then we want to display a message for some feedback, just letting them know that they're searching for lobbies. And once we've got the distance, we can actually request from Steam to request lobby list. So we're requesting that we get a list of lobbies that it has found with its search parameters. So with this in place, it's time to move on to actually populating our pop-up box. So we've got our, go down here. So searching for the calling the request lobby list. This will call the callback of lobby match list. So this lobby match list is where we want to take in the lobbies that it has found, and we're going to iterate through each of them individually. So we've got for lobby in lobbies. And the first thing we're going to do is, it's something we're just going to use quickly for now. So we don't need any global variable or anything. We're just going to locally define a lobby name, get the data and just set it as the name there. And we're going to do the same for the getting the number of members. Again, just quickly going to use that. It's just so that we can lay out the button and display some information on them that we want. Then we're actually going to start populating this lobby list, the panel, with some buttons. So we're going to, for each one, create a new button. Lobby button, create it new, and we're going to set the text of that button to be in this case, we're setting the lobby ID, the name of the lobby, and we're also displaying the number of players that are in that lobby, all on the actual button itself. We're then going to decide a size for the button. We're setting it to 800 by 50 for this example. This is something you can play around with, depends on the menu you're using, but this is where you just find the size, set a name for it. Again, we're just going to use a string lobby. And then we are going to connect a callback. So we're connecting a signal here to the actual button's pressed call. So like how we've actually used the built-in functions from the node panel and we've got on create pressed, what this is basically saying is we want to connect the join lobby signal to call when we press this button. This will mean that the button that is the name and everything like that will also act as our ability to join the server. This will call our join function like anything else. We're passing in the lobby itself. And there you go. We can now join just like we did earlier where we can join friends. And lastly, we want to actually populate our container. So our container, as you can see, we've got a scroll container, which is what's going to allow us to scroll through the many lobbies. And this VBox container is what makes sure that all of the buttons will display quite cleanly and consistently throughout, being made up of all of these buttons that we're creating. So we just need to, with each individual button, add it as a child, and the fact that it's being put inside a VBox container is where it'll actually handle that itself, and the spacing and things like that will all be even. Okay, so let's actually test this out now then, shall we? So if we load up, you can see that now we are connecting to Steam as usual. If we click join, we populate this list with a whole bunch of lobbies, and when we click on the lobby, we would join it. Now, none of these lobbies are actually running our game. These are just all the people who are currently using Steam's standard development test app ID, which is 480. But we can click close and it closes, or we can just choose a random one and it's updated. It hasn't got the names correctly because again, they're not actually running our game or anything like that. So it's not going to function properly, but as you can see, we were able to sort of connect with them. So yeah, we now have the joining lobby pop-up fully functioning as well. Okay, so we're now going to work on getting our chat box up and running, being able to send messages back and forth to each other, which will display in our chat box. So the first function we're going to bring in is our send chat message. What this is going to do is capture in a variable, string variable, our message, which we are taking directly from the message text field here. We're just taking the text that has been typed into there. And then we can call the send lobby chat message function, which takes a lobby ID. So we're going to pass in the ID of the lobby that we are currently connected to and the message that we wish to send. By capturing this function call into a variable as well, however, we're also able to check to see if it was successful, as this will return whether it was successful or not. So if the message was not sent, we want to display an error message to the user so that they're aware that their message didn't go through. So we're just going to say error chat message failed to send. Otherwise, if it has been sent, then we're going to clear the chat message anyways and make sure that it's blank, ready for the next ones. And if it has been sent, then we will call the callback. So the callback that this function calls is going to be, go to the bottom here, on lobby message. So this is called whenever the server, the lobby, has identified that a message has attempted to be sent through it. Takes in some parameters, gives us some parameters, sorry, result, user, the message, and the type. We're not going to use the result or the type. The key things that we want to know for this is going to be user and message. So what we want to do is we want to find out and identify who it is that has actually sent this message. So we're going to capture in the sender variable here the user that has sent the message, and then we're simply going to display the message. So this is going to be called for everyone. So everyone's going to identify the person who sent it, and for the sake of formatting, I've put it here so that after a colon, we will then put the message, and then this will say so-and-so and display their message afterwards. So with this in place, if we give it a test, we should find that if we just create a lobby, we should then be able to testing my message. Of course. So the thing that we have forgotten to do is actually have it so that our button actually does something. So what we are going to do is, what was the name of our function? I think it was send chat message. That's the one. So we want our button to call send chat message. And so now if we just create testing a message, we click send, and as you can see, it said that we have said testing a message. And so we now have the ability to send messages. We can send whatever we want, whatever is typed into this message box will be sent and displayed, and the message box is cleared. Okay, so the last thing that we need to implement now is the ability to leave the lobbies. So we start by creating our function. So we've got our leave lobby function. What this will do is initially it'll make sure and check to see if the user is actually in a lobby. At first, we don't want to attempt to leave a lobby if we're not in one. So if our lobby ID isn't just 0, then we want to be able to leave, and so we want to display the message to the user for some feedback like usual, saying leaving lobby. And then we simply want to call the Steam function leave lobby and pass in the lobby ID. Now, as far as actually leaving the lobby is concerned, that is all we really need to do. Steam will handle the rest for us. But there are a few things that we want to do ourselves, a bit of cleanup for the sake of our UI. So the first thing we want to do is just make sure that we have updated our global's lobby ID to be 0. We want to make sure that it doesn't keep the old lobby ID. Well, we're no longer in a lobby. We also want to reset some of our labels back to their default names. So for example, the lobby name, we don't want to keep the old names. We want to set it to be just lobby name. And our player count, we're no longer in a lobby, so we want it to just display that the number of players is 0. And we also want to make sure that we clear the actual list of players because we're no longer in a lobby with them. So the other thing we want to do is also run through each member in our actual array of lobby members and just close any peer-to-peer sessions with the users. In our current case, we're not really using much of the peer-to-peer stuff yet. You may not have a peer-to-peer connection open with them, but just in case you do, you are going to want to make sure that you have closed any possible connections you have with individual people. This helps to prevent any issues in the future. We just do that by passing in the member's Steam ID. And then once that is done, we can clear our lobby members array as we're no longer connected with anyone at all. The last thing we want to do then is to make sure that our leave lobby button is actually connected to our leave lobby function, and that should be now working correctly. So if we, for example, create one and create a simple lobby like usual, if we click leave, then we've reset this and reset the name, and we've said that we've left the lobby, and so we are no longer in a lobby anymore. Okay, so that is now everything set up. We should have a fully functioning Steam lobby. So what we're going to do is we're going to export it and test it out. So I've already set my project up ready to export. So I'm going to go to export. You are going to want to make sure that you designate your custom templates, which you should have generated when you were setting up your GodotSteam and everything. I've designated a folder for that. So it's just in my documents. I've got my Godot tutorials and the Steam builds, and I am going to export this project. Okay, so I've exported the project. As you can see here, I've got my GodotSteam exe and the package file. We are also going to want to make sure that we put in our Steam API 64 DLL. I've got the library in there as well, but that one's not really necessary. You just need the DLL if you're on Windows, and we want to pass in our Steam app ID, which is just 480, which is as I've said before, it's Steam's default thing. So what we are going to do is we're going to run that now. And here you can see our exported version appears to be running perfectly fine. So I'm going to go ahead and send this over to my laptop, and we'll be able to test out running it on 2 clients. So I'll be back in a moment. Okay, so I have now sent this over to my laptop and loaded it up on here. So first we're going to test out our ability to invite someone. So I'm going to create a test lobby, create it. As we can see, we've updated ourselves. We've got our lobby test here, and I'm just going to go ahead and send an invite to my other account over here on my laptop, and we'll wait for that to join. And there you go, it's joined. As we can see, we've got my current account and the Don't Scroll account. So let's have them send over a message saying, hey, from the laptop, and we can see it's come through immediately. And I can say, hey, back, and mine will also display. And if they choose to leave, then if they leave, we see that they've disappeared from our list, and Don't Scroll has left the lobby has shown up. So let's now quickly test this the other way around, and I'll have them set up a lobby on the laptop. There you go. Create. And instead of inviting this time, what I can do is I can just choose to join game, and you can see that I have joined them. I'm now in their lobby. Dawn's Crow is what they set it to. Dawn's Crow is the name, and if they send this time hello, we can see that the message has come through, and I can type hey back and it'll go through. And yet again, the lobby can be, they can disconnect. The lobby remains open. The lobby itself hasn't been closed because it's peer-to-peer. So I am now the one who's keeping the lobby open, and I can click leave and the lobby has been closed. So there you go. We can see we've got the Steam lobby fully functioning. So thank you for watching my video. I hope you enjoyed it. I hope it was informative, and hopefully uh, you all now know how to create a Steam lobby using the GodotSteam module. First, I would like to give a shout out to Gramps because this module is absolutely incredible, and it's definitely coming in handy for the game that I'm making, Last on Land, at the moment, which is where I learnt why I learned to do this. I followed the tutorials on Gramps' website, but I decided that it would be a good idea to make a video tutorial because I feel like myself and a lot of other people prefer a video tutorial to a text tutorial, and the information is very lacking out there at the moment, with Godot being still kind of new, I suppose. So yeah, hopefully one day someone can make a better tutorial than this. But for now, I hope this was good enough, and thank you very much for watching.